Hi guys. There we go. Okay, so I was asked in block 5 to solve all the problems from this worksheet that I handed out a few days back with chain rule practice, or just derivative practice. And so remember, on this test, you're not going to simplify, so I'm just going to take the derivative and leave it, and that's what I expect you to do. So I was asked to do this on video, so here it goes. And by the way, you're going to have to pardon the lighting because I didn't feel like pulling out the big lights. So, number 1, f of x equals 4x to the 5th minus 5x to the 4th. Okay, so nothing special here. Alright, we're going to have issues with this thing. Or what? I'm getting tired of this. For some reason, this thing's going off the deep end. Alright, so, power rule, right? There's no chain, there's nothing special. So the derivative here is just, so power rule says we bring that down and multiply it to any coefficient, so it'd be 20x to the 4th minus 20x cubed. Done. Okay, number 2, f of x equals e to the x sine x. Well, now I look at this thing and I say I've got a product. I have e to the x times sine of x. So that means I have to write out the product rule. F prime of x is equal to e to the x prime times sine of x plus e to the x times the derivative of the sine. Right? So again, I haven't taken a derivative yet. I've just written out the rule, and now I can, now I know where to take my derivatives, and I'm going to do that. So this is equal to derivative of e to the x is e to the x times the sine of x plus e to the x derivative of the sine is the cosine of x. Finished. Number 3, we've got f of x equals x to the 4th plus 3x all to the negative 1. Okay, so what this tells me is that, I've got stuff inside parentheses raised to a power. I need chain rule. So the outer function is x to the negative 1. The inner function is the stuff inside, x to the 4th plus 3x. So remember, chain rule says take the derivative of the outer and recompose it with the inner function. So if I do this, the derivative of this outer function is negative x to the minus 2, but I have to plug in the stuff that was already inside, right? X to the 4th. So I'd rewrite this as negative x to the 4th plus 3x to the negative 2. That's f prime g of x. And now the rest of the rule says, after you take the derivative of the outer, recompose it with the inner, then you have to multiply that result by the derivative of what's inside. So I haven't done that yet. So times the derivative of what's inside is just 4x cubed plus 3. Okay, so this would be f prime g of x times g prime of x. The other thing you can do, which I rarely teach it this way, but maybe it would be helpful to some of you who are having some difficulty, is you can let so I'm going to do this one again. You can let the inner function, you can just call it u. Okay, so what I know is u equals x to the 4th plus 3x. So my function then looks like u to the negative 1, right? And we know how to take the derivative of that. The derivative of that is just the power rule. It's negative u to the negative 2, and then we've got to back substitute u in. So that'd be negative x to the 4th plus 3x all to the minus 2 times the derivative of u. Well, what's the derivative of u? Is 4x cubed plus 3, so we would multiply that. So that's another way that some teachers use. I try not to because it doesn't have that level of sophistication. But it works, and as long as you define what the inner function is and tell the grader let u equal, like I did here, let u equal to this thing, and then back substitute in, it's okay, but then you can't forget to take the derivative of u. So if u is easier for you to deal with, I'll try and do a couple like that just so you can see some different scenarios, but you should be able to do it this way. Okay, this is the formal definition and that's what you should use. Okay, number 4. Number 4. We have f of x is equal to 3x squared times x cubed plus 1 to the 7th. The first thing I see is this is a product, so I need to write out the product rule. F prime of x then is equal to 3x squared prime times x cubed plus 1 to the 7th plus 3x squared times x cubed plus 1 to the 7th prime. The derivative of this term is 6x. Multiply it to what's left. And then add to that, we're going to leave the 3x squared factor alone on this side. Now I've got a chain rule here, right? So, I'm going to chain it right now. So this is, if I use the chain rule on this term, it's 7 times the stuff inside to the 6th times derivative of the stuff inside. So I know that's a terrible way to say it. That lacks sophistication in and of itself. But most kids, in my experience, get that. Now, the other way you could do it, so, we'll just focus on this part right here, because this is where I have to use chain. I would say let u equal to x cubed plus 1. Alright, so what you have here then is u to the 7th. The derivative of u to the 7th is 7u to the 6th. We would back substitute u in, and then we would take the derivative of u, which is 3x squared, and multiply. Okay, so this is the same thing as this. Remember that this is the same thing as this. So you're done. So again, if you want to use that method, that's fine, but you're going to have to define what u is for me and the greater if you do that. Number 5, we have f of x is equal to cosine 4 of x minus 2x squared. I'm going to write this as the cosine of x to the 4th minus 2x squared. I haven't taken a derivative, I'm just rewriting that because I know how to take the derivative of this, I don't know how to take the derivative of that. And this shows me here, I've got that inner function, outer function thing, so I need chain rule. So let's chain that. It's 4, replace the inside, subtract 1 from the power, times derivative of the inside, that's a negative sign of x, minus, now when I go over here, that's just power rule, 4x. Done. Number 6. Number 6, f of x equals x over 1 plus x squared. This is a quotient. I need to write the quotient rule. So f prime of x equals low times derivative of high minus high times derivative of low over low squared. And if I take the derivative of high, that's just a 1, minus x times the derivative of low is 2x all over 1 plus x squared squared. Done. I use the quotient rule. Number 7. We have another quotient rule. It's x squared minus 1 over x. So f prime of x is equal to low times derivative of high minus high times derivative of low over low squared. And now taking the derivative, we're going to have x times 2x minus x squared minus 1 times 1 all over x squared. And you're finished. Number 8. Number 8, our function is 3x squared times x to the 1/2. I see a product. I'm going to write out the product rule. F prime of x is equal to 3x squared prime times x to the 1/2 plus 3x squared times x to the 1/2 prime. Looking, at this side of the plus sign, oops, let me fix that. This is just power rule. So this is 6x times x to the 1/2 plus 3x squared times 1/2 x to the negative 1/2. Done. Don't do another thing to it. Number 9, f of x is equal to ln x e to the 7x. I do not see a product here. Remember, the function for the natural log is ln x, so that means stuff was plugged in for x, okay? This is chain rule. So, get rid of that now. I have to take the derivative of the outside, and I know that the derivative of the natural log of x is 1 over x. So I'm going to write it as 1 over x, but instead of writing the x, I have to replace that with the stuff inside, times derivative of the inside. Well, the inside is a product. It's x times e to the 7x. So I have to employ the product rule. X prime e to the 7x plus x times e to the 7x prime. So that's 1 over x e to the 7x times derivative of x is 1 times e to the 7x is going to give us e to the 7x plus x. Now this is chain because remember e to the x is the function and there's stuff plugged into that x. So the derivative of the outside is e to the x, but if we recompose it with the stuff inside, then it's e to the 7x times derivative of the inside is 7. Leave it alone. You're done. Number 10. Boy, I'm moving right along, and I haven't even had coffee yet. F of x is equal to 2x to the 4th plus 3x squared minus 1 all over x squared. So quotient rule, denominator is pretty simple. Let's do it. F prime of x is equal to low times derivative of high minus high times derivative of low all over low squared. So that's going to be x squared. Now derivative of high is easy. It's all power rule. It's 8x cubed plus 6x minus high. Derivative of low is just 2x, nice and simple, over low squared. And you're done. Number 11. Paper, where does it begin here? 11. So in number 11, we have f of x equals x cubed times the 5th root of 2 minus x. Right away I would rewrite that because you're going to have to take the derivative of that as 2 minus x to the 1/5. So that you know how to take the derivative of. Okay, so this is a product, right? So I'm going to use product rule. F prime of x is equal to x cubed prime times 2 minus x to the 1/5 plus x cubed times 2 minus x to the 1/5 prime. And the derivative of x cubed is 3x squared. And over here, the derivative of this, well, that's chain, so I'm going to use some brackets or a big parenthesis or whatever you want to use. Again, the derivative of the outer, we bring the 1/5 down, we recompose it with the inside. 1/5 minus 1 is negative 4/5, and the derivative of the inside is negative 1. Done. Derivative of negative x is negative 1. 12. F of x equals 2x minus 4 over root x. And again, you can write that as 2x minus 4 over x to the 1/2. And to make life even better, rather than using a quotient rule, you could write this as 2x minus 4 times x to the negative 1/2 and use a power rule. It's simple enough that you're probably not going to get into trouble. So let's take the derivative. F prime of x is equal to 2 minus, now look, I got a minus 4, but I'm going to multiply by a negative 1/2, so it's going to become plus 2x to the negative 3/2. Finished. Miss Wilson, you make these look so easy. They are easy. You just have to practice, practice, practice. So I hope you all go to those links that I posted on EDSB and get some more practice in. Because the Lamar math page, the one with the, I think it's the chain rule one, Paul's online notes, I think it's called. He's a really good mathematician. And so he's got some good problems up there. And they're all college level, but AP is college level, so you know, some of them might be tough. I'm not sure. I didn't look at all of them, but there'll be plenty that you should be able to do. I'm sure about it. All right, so number 13, we have another quotient. F of x is equal to 4 times 3x minus 1 squared all over x squared plus 7 to the x. Now, you know, this is 4 times, just let me say this. This is 4 times 3x minus 1 squared over x squared plus 7 to the x. So you could pull out the 4 and focus on this thing and then multiply the 4 back in, or leave it hanging out there. As long as you don't get rid of it, you'd be okay, because again, we're not simplifying. So, you know, I'm going to leave the 4 outside and I'm going to use quotient rule. Quotient rule says low times derivative of high. Now, I'm going to take the derivatives on this one as I go. The derivative of the high, well, maybe I won't. It's a chain rule, so hang on. All right, minus high. Oops. I forgot that I pulled the 4 out. Don't you forget. All right, minus high times derivative of low all over low squared. Right? So again, you know, this 4 is being multiplied to whatever the result is. So I'm not getting rid of it, so it's cool. It's all right. All right, so what we have is the derivative of the high. That's a chain rule. I'm going to bring the 2 down front. I'm going to write it first. Recompose it with the inside. Subtract 1 from the power, so the exponent is now 1, times derivative of the inside times the low, right? Minus high times derivative of low. Well, derivative of low is 2x plus ln 7 times 7 to the x. Don't forget that 7 to the x, or any number raised to the x power, is going to have the derivative ln that base times base to the x. I'm writing really crooked. Over low squared. And guess what? If this is a test question, I'll leave it like that. You don't need to simplify it. Okay, 14. Number 14, f of x is equal to the square root of x squared plus 8. And we want to rewrite that as x squared plus 8 to the 1/2 power. So we can take the derivative. This is pure chain rule, so let's take the derivative. We take the derivative of the outer function, recompose it with what's inside, subtract 1 from the exponent, and multiply that result by the derivative of the inside. Done. Number 15. So I was asked to go up to number 17 because I believe that's what I assigned on this. So, Ella, stop. She won't stop. So, anyway, I'm only going up to number 17. Ella. I think the Amazon.com man is here. This is x squared plus This whole thing is under the box. I did this in class and I accidentally wrote it with just the 3. I'll be right back in just 1 second. I just want to see what she's barking at. Ella, stop. Oh, stop. Hey, stop it. It's not Amazon.com. It's another dog walking by. So, of course, she thinks she owns the whole block. Alright, so we have another quotient rule. And the denominator on this one looks pretty complicated, but it's not. It's a quotient, so I need to write out the quotient rule. So let's do it. F prime of x is equal to low times derivative of high minus high times derivative of low over low squared. Whew. Alright, this is easy. I'm just pretty much rewriting most of it. X squared plus root 3x to the 5th times 1. Derivative of x is 1. Minus x. Now here I'm going to have to use the chain rule. And after I use the chain rule, when I take the derivative of the inside, you notice I'm going to have another little chain rule when I hit this term. Okay, so, you know, if you want to, side note over here, side note, you can rewrite that term as x squared plus 3x to the 1/2 all raised to the 5th. So I'm going to take the derivative over here and then I'll add it, or put it here where it should be. So derivative of the outside is 5 times the stuff inside to the 4th, right? We subtract 1 from the exponent, times derivative of the inside. Well, this term is just 2x, that's easy. This one right here is chain rule. So 2x plus derivative of the outside is 1/2 times stuff inside to the negative 1/2 times derivative of the inner is 3. So it's this term here minus x times derivative of this thing, which is this big long thing. So 5 times x squared plus. So this mess is the derivative of that denominator. Woo! All over. Denominator squared. And you're done. Again, just leave it that way. Don't try to clean it up, because I'm telling you, if you do, somewhere along that way you're going to make an error and it's going to cost you points. And we want to maximize our points, right? Because it's the end of the quarter. Alright, number 16. Number 16. Number 16, f of x is equal to 6 over 3x squared minus pi, all raised to the 4th power. And I'm getting blurry again here. Okay, I guess I'm going to have to buy a new Elmo. I know I complain about this Elmo every time. It never used to do this. I don't know what happened. Maybe because I put coffee under it and the steam or something got to it. I don't know. Okay, quotient rule again, right? Now here's a trick. This is the same as 6 over 1 times 1 over 3x squared minus pi to the 4th, isn't it? If I multiply straight across, I'm going to get the same thing back. So if you want to, you can write this as 6 times 1 over 3x squared minus pi to the 4th. And then, since there's a 1 up here, why not rewrite this some more as 3x squared minus pi to the negative 4. Hey. So now you get a chain rule instead of a quotient rule, but you're going to have quotient and chain if you use the quotient rule, which you should because it's a quotient, so you'd have to write that out first. So let's see what happens here. We're going to have 6 Derivative of the outside is -4, recomposed with the stuff inside. If I subtract 1, I'm going to have a -5 for the exponent, times derivative of the inside. The derivative of this term is 6x, and the derivative of pi is 0. I am done. Finished. Now I will do quotient rule, okay, just for practice for you guys. So it's low times derivative of high minus high times derivative of low all over low squared. And if I take the derivative of a number, it's 0, and 0 times this thing makes this whole thing 0. So what I'm left with is -6. Now derivative of this is going to be 4, recomposed with the inside. 4 minus 1 is 3, times derivative of the inside is 6x, derivative of pi is 0, all over 3x squared minus pi to the 4th quantity squared. Now you may say, this doesn't look the same as the one above it, because this is to the -5 and that's to the 3rd. Well, let's not forget here that we have one of these things downstairs. So, you know, if I simplify this one, so here I'm going off on a tangent, but if I simplify this, this is 6 times -4 times 6x all over 3x squared minus pi to the 5th. Do you agree? I'm just, you know, this is all over 1. I'm just bringing that negative, that quantity to the negative exponent downstairs to make the negative exponent positive. And if I clean this up, right, I'm going to have 24 times 6x negative, so, or 30, sorry, yeah, I could do 36 times -4. What is that? 36 times 4, 12, 144, right? So this is -144x over 3x squared minus pi to the 5th. That's simplified, which you're not going to do on the test. If I do the same thing here, I'm going to have -6 times 4 times 6x all over the thing that's downstairs now, which is 3x squared minus pi, 4 times 2 is 8, times 3x squared minus pi to the -3, which is going to give me -144x. The bases are the same, so when it's true, when that happens, that means I can write it as one base, and I can add the exponents. Well, 8 minus 3 gives me 5, and you notice I get the same exact answer. So while they don't look very much the same in their raw form, it's the same answer. So that's why I'm saying don't do this, just leave it alone once you take the derivative. Finally, number 17, because then I was asked to also make a video on the chain rule, which I don't know if I really need to make a video. I mean, I've been going chain rule for how many days now? But, excuse me, let's do one more. The last one, f of x is equal to 3x squared minus pi x to the 4th all over 6. So again, you know, I can write this as 1/6 times 3x squared minus pi x to the 4th. I can pull that out as a constant multiple and just focus on derivative of this. So this is 1/6. Well, what is the derivative of this? Chain rule, right? It's 4 times 3x squared minus pi x to the 3rd. Derivative of inside is 6x minus pi. You are done. Finished. Complete. And I believe that was what I assigned, 1 through 17. I hope that's it. If not, let me know before tomorrow night, because by then it's going to be too late because your test is Friday. I'm sorry I'm yawning, but I've been working now for a little over 12 hours, so I'm a little tired. But anyway, you know, watch this, practice them, go on to those websites and do those practice problems, and I think you're going to be just fine on Friday for the test. All right? Have a great night.